met a group out of Colorado a while back, and they were in a limousine. I do limousine tours for the high rollers. And so I'm walking around the side of the building when Mr. and Mrs. Colorado began to scream. Michael Jackson. Wait a minute. Flags are half-staff for Michael Jackson. That's what that song says. All right. Anyway, Mr. and Mrs. Colorado were in front of the building screaming, and they saw the head of the window right up there on the second floor. But notice how some of the shutters are half closed, some are half open. Come back here later tonight. It might be the opposite. Some are closed, some are open. So you never know what's going to happen here at Hull House. Very dark tonight. Usually more lights around than this. But this is the location of Hull House, but that's not where the baby, devil baby I should say, was born. The devil baby was born on Taylor Street, the old Italian neighborhood. Now we got to get to the traffic light and head west to get to the Italian area, because much of the area here was torn down to make way for the campus, at least between Halstead and Morgan, and between the Expressway and Roosevelt. That was all torn down to make way for the campus. So we're going to enter into the Italian neighborhood, what's left of it, by leaving the campus. But I want to point out to you, before the area was Italian, it was Italian at the time of the campus creation. But before that, it was Irish. And one of the most famous residents was Mrs. O'Leary, who owned the fabled cow. And she was just east of us, and we'll be visiting that spot a little bit later on. Mrs. O'Leary used to worship at the Catholic Church Holy Family at Roosevelt Road in May, founded by Jesuit missionary Father Arnold Damon. Damon came here in 1856 to work with the urban poor, and he eventually built a cathedral-sized church here. During the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, although he was from Belgium and English was not his first language, he was speaking in New York to a group. On a pulpit there, he was preaching to the multitude, and he's handed a telegram that read, "Chicago's in flames, your people, your parish are in peril." Well, what can he do? He's halfway across America. He drops to his knees, and he begs God to hear his work, to hear his prayers, I should say, to save his work. And sure enough, you look at a map of how the Chicago fire burned, it zigzags out of the area and burns down the downtown business district, takes out the Protestant north side, the Catholic west side was saved. It was a miracle. But like a country and western song, your miracle might be somebody else's utter disaster. Father Damon gets back to Chicago, and he vows he's going to thank God for saving the church, saving the area from the fire. And to do that, he has 7 candles lit at a side altar in the church. Then he has the candles replaced by gas jets, then replaced by light bulbs. But from 1871 to the current day, 7 lights have burned at a side altar in that church to thank God for the miracle. Okay, this is the Italian area, and on the right, you'll soon see the last of the Italian ice stands, Italian lemonade, Mario's, coming up on the right, and then we've got across the street from that, Al's Beef, the original Al's Beef, the best Italian beef in Chicago. But check out the signage here on the right for the, look at the line for the Italian lemonade. Check out the signage here, and how quaint that is, huh? There it is. And there's Al's Beef on the left. And now we're going to get to Racine and take a left-hand turn. 1871. And that's the year of the fire. Who was our president back then? Grant. Grant. Somebody's a good history buff back there. U.S. Grant was our president. His brother Hiram was a big mucky-muck in the Republican Party in Chicago. And the president and the first lady were invited to come to Chicago for a big dinner party and parade in their honor. And then Julia Dent Grant, the first lady, has a dream, and she sees Chicago in flames. She sees Chicago burning with a bird flying above the Phoenix, symbol of destruction by fire. She tells her husband about it, says, "We're not going to go. I had this psychic dream." He believed her. Why? It wasn't the first time she had exhibited such psychic ability. Years earlier, she said, we're not going to Ford's Theater tonight with the Lincolns. And the Grants were supposed to be at Ford's Theater. They would have been dead meat if they were there that night, but they blew it off. And that's why for a while they're considered to be part of the conspiracy to kill Lincoln, because they weren't there that night. And so here we have another example when the First Lady saved President Grant. A true psychic. Julia Dent Grant came from family of spiritualists. And Julia Dent Grant, long before Nancy Reagan was talking to astrologers or Hillary was trying to channel Eleanor Roosevelt, was a true psychic First Lady. To your left, cathedral size, here it comes, Holy Family Church. The area is not as bad as it used to be. It's becoming gentrified around here. And we're going to swing left and check out the church. Next to it, St. Ignatius College Prep, with a statue of Father Damon in front, given to the school by Richard H. Driehaus, my DePaul University alum, who made $1 billion in the stock market, forgot his old friends. Hey, folks, When you make $1 billion, don't forget your friends. In fact, I won't forget you if you won't forget me. So, do a pact. Okay, here on the left-hand side, on a brick pedestal 4 feet above the sidewalk, to the east of the stairwell, there's Father Damon in bronze. There he is. The priest who saved the area by prayer. There he is on the left. Okay, we're going to continue eastbound now. We've got Halstead coming up here in a moment. And, of course, Halstead, between Roosevelt and Maxwell Street, that, of course, was the area of Jewtown. The outdoor markets for 135 years. More about that in a little bit. But first, let's go further east. And did you ever see where the Chicago fire began? Well, I think I'm the only tour that takes people here. And I'll show it to you here momentarily. This actually is a place I have not been using lately, but it's our substitute extra material here because of the Dillinger spot. Let me tell you about this. It was our late Mayor Richard J. Daley with a wry sense of humor who had the Chicago Fire Academy built on the spot where Mrs. O'Leary's house had stood. Precisely where the house had stood is a bronze monument, 3 tongues of flame. And you're going to be able to stand inside the fire, Garth Brooks fans, get your picture taken right there where the fire began. We're going to be able to check that out here in just a moment. And so now you know some of the other supernatural tales about the Chicago fire. Flames that will not die here in this town, at least. So much has changed after the Chicago fire of 1871. You know, Chicago was a wooden building city prior to that for the most part. And after that, we decided, oops, maybe we better build a brick and stone. And that's why the Chicago Common brick was invented. It is a pinkish brick that was made in millions. Millions of these bricks were made, and all the older buildings in Chicago are built of this building material. The Chicago Common brick, it was called. So if you've got a building built of that brick material, you know it dates from after the Chicago fire up to about World War I. And if you're interested in buying those St. Valentine's Day Massacre bricks, that's exactly the kind of bricks they are. The Chicago Common. Now this is just near the Jewtown area, the Maxwell Street area. There's Sherman Shoes on the right. Remember them? They were around for a long time. You guys never went shopping at Maxwell Street in the old days? Oh my gosh, where'd you people grow up anyway? And we're about to see the famous delicatessen here, Manny's for corned beef. Corned beef sandwich is the last of the Jewish delis around here. But they're not open late, or otherwise Gaston will be stopping for a quick one there, right, Gaston?
Right. Good.
Heart attack on a plate, though, Gaston.
Yeah.
So this is Jefferson, and Jefferson and DeKoven. That's where we find the spot where Mrs. O'Leary's used to stand. Her son was Gentleman Jim O'Leary, a famous gambler who had a house on Garfield Boulevard, just a little distance away from where I grew up years ago. Big mansion on Garfield Boulevard, the south side. And I went to grammar school with relatives of the O'Leary family. There's Manny's on the right. Since 1942. Coming up on the right-hand side, the Chicago Fire Academy, the glazed red brick. Then we're going to pull up in front, disembark, and we can do our picture taking and see if you feel the heat here, the spot where the fire began. There it is. All right, guess so. Not tonight, yeah. All right, they're saving energy, but not having the lights on again here. Here we go. Well.